What happens when Prince Harry, the most unpredictable royal of the modern era, sits across from Howard Stern? A man famous for asking what no one else dares to? No filters, no handlers, no palace PR team, just microphones and ego. Harry walks into the Howard Stern show, expecting to set the record straight. Howard walks in, expecting answers. What neither of them expect is just how fast the interview will spiral into one of the most explosive clashes broadcast live. The Howard Stern Show studio hummed with its usual electric, unpredictable energy. Dim lighting, walls plastered with posters from decades of outrageous interviews, and the unmistakable smell of coffee, equipment, and trouble waiting to happen. Howard Stern slid into his seat behind the microphone, long hair tucked behind one ear, glasses reflecting the studio lights. He cleared his throat, shot a glance toward his producer Robin Quivers, and smirked. "This is gonna be wild," he murmured. Then the door opened. Prince Harry stepped inside like he owned the room. Navy jacket, black shirt, chin slightly raised, jaw set in mild irritation, as if the very air in the studio was inconveniencing him. Robin whispered into her mic, "Oh boy, he already looks annoyed." Howard smiled wider. "Perfect." Harry offered a stiff nod as he sat across from Howard, leaning back as though the chair wasn't comfortable enough for royalty. The cameras were already rolling when Howard leaned into his mic. "Welcome to the show, Prince Harry. Again, I have to ask, should we bow, salute, or just vibe? What's the proper protocol for interviewing someone who hates protocol?" Robin laughed softly. It was meant as a joke, but Harry's eyes sharpened instantly. "You don't need to bow," he said in a clipped tone. "I'm not part of that circus anymore." Howard raised a brow. "Well, you left the circus, sure, but the circus didn't leave you. That's why we're here." Harry crossed his arms, already irritated. "I'm here because people need to hear the truth without tabloid twisting." Howard leaned back, amused. "Buddy, you're on the Howard Stern Show. Twisting isn't our brand. Asking blunt questions is." The air tightened slightly. Harry gave a smug half-smile. "That's fine, as long as the questions are intelligent." Robin winced. She sensed the incoming explosion. Howard kept the grin, but lowered his voice a notch. "Trust me, the intelligent ones are usually the most uncomfortable." Harry sighed dramatically. "Then, let's get on with it." Howard opened with what he thought was a warm-up question. "So, how's life in America? You've been here a while. California treating you well?" Harry shrugged. "It's tolerable. Better than living in a palace where everyone pretends to care." Howard blinked. "Tolerable? Most people would kill to live in a Montecito mansion." Harry shrugged again, tone dripping with arrogance. "When you've grown up surrounded by privilege, you stop being impressed by houses, Howard." Robin quietly whispered, "Oh, wow." Howard chuckled. "Okay, Your Highness of Humility." Harry snapped slightly. "Is there a real question in there, or do you just want to poke fun?" Howard leaned forward, not breaking eye contact. "All right, real question. You left the royal family to escape the spotlight, and then went on Oprah, Netflix, a book tour, and now my show. Isn't that a little contradictory?" Harry's jaw tightened visibly. "It's not contradiction, it's control. I share my story, not the press." Howard tapped his pen against the table. "Sure, but you still want the spotlight. You're here. That says something." Harry's glare sharpened. "It says I want the truth heard, not distorted." Howard nodded slowly. "Okay, so, Meghan." Robin inhaled sharply, bracing herself. Harry tilted his head with annoyance. "What about her now?" Howard shrugged casually. "Everything, public perception, marriage, the constant headlines. People say—" Harry cut him off sharply. "People say a lot of things. People are stupid." Robin blinked. "Yikes." Howard held up a hand. "Hey, you came to the show. I gotta ask." Harry's voice dropped into a cold, defensive tone. "She's stronger than any of you know. She's the reason I'm not trapped in that royal cage anymore." Howard studied him. "And is she happy? Really happy? Because the press says—" Harry snapped again. "I don't care what the press says, and neither should you." Howard paused. For the first time in the interview, a sliver of frustration crossed his face. But he kept calm. "All right," he said slowly. "Let's talk family." Harry rolled his eyes dramatically. Of course, that's all anyone wants to talk about. Howard leaned in. Well, yeah, you're a prince, dude. Harry gave a cold smile. Not anymore. Howard's grin widened. Maybe not, but the attitude stuck. Harry stiffened. What's that supposed to mean? Howard didn't flinch. It means you've had an attitude since you walked in. Harry's voice turned icy. I'm honest. That's what bothers people. Howard answered softly. No. What bothers people is the chip on your shoulder the size of Buckingham Palace. The tension became physical, like static electricity humming between the microphones. Robin whispered, Oh boy, this is only part one. Howard's smile turned thin. And we're just getting started. The studio lights hummed gently above them, but the energy in the room was anything but gentle. Howard Stern leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on Prince Harry like a man trying to read a bomb's timer before it explodes. Harry sat stiff, arms folded across his chest, chin slightly raised. Every inch of him radiated. Irritation, not the explosive kind yet, but the slow-burning, simmering kind that warns everyone, don't push me, which, unfortunately for Harry, was exactly what Howard Stern did best. Howard adjusted his headphones. All right, Harry, he said calmly. Let's talk about something simple, something easy, something everyone can relate to. Harry raised an eyebrow. Doubtful? Howard smiled, that thin, mischievous smile that always meant trouble. Well, let's try anyway. Marriage. How's married life treating you these days? Robin inhaled sharply. Oh boy, here we go. Harry's shoulders tightened. My marriage is exactly what it should be. Howard blinked. That's very vague. Harry smirked. Not everything needs to be spelled out for you, Howard. Howard tapped the desk lightly. I mean, I'm just asking because people have noticed things. You and Meghan haven't been photographed together as often. The tabloids say, Harry cut in sharply, the tabloids don't know a damn thing about my life, and frankly, neither do the people who read them. Howard let the jab roll off. Okay, but you didn't deny anything I said. Harry's jaw flexed. I don't need to deny anything. The press thrives on lies. If you want to be part of that circus, be my guest. Robin whispered into the mic. He's really starting to lose it. Howard leaned forward. You're saying everything about you two is perfect? Harry's voice turned cold. I'm saying it's none of your business. Howard nodded, jotting something down. That's fair, but you wrote a book that made it everyone's business. The words hit like a hammer. Harry's expression darkened. I wrote a book to tell the truth. Howard shrugged. Sure, but when you talk that much, people naturally have questions. And you're here, on my show, which means you knew those questions would come. Harry scoffed. I came because I thought maybe you'd have substance. Howard raised an eyebrow. Buddy, I've been doing this since before you were born. And maybe it's time to retire, Harry snapped. Robin covered her mouth. Oh my God, Howard laughed. A low, rumbling, dangerous laugh. All right, your royal rudeness, Howard said. Let's try something else. Let's talk about your family. Harry exhaled dramatically, rolling his eyes. Of course, because that's all anyone thinks I am, a gateway to gossip. Howard didn't blink. Well, you gave them a lot to gossip about. You talked about William's temper, Kate making Meghan cry, your father being distant. Harry cut him off sharply. I told my truth. If people can't handle honesty, that's their problem. Howard nodded, still calm. It's not the honesty people question, Harry. It's the tone. Harry's smirk returned, cold and condescending. My tone bothers people because it's confident. They expect me to be quiet, small, humble, and I refuse. Howard leaned in. You've confused confidence with arrogance. Harry's eyes flashed. And you've confused interviewing with poking a bear. Robin whispered, Oh boy, this is going downhill fast. Howard pressed forward anyway. All right, let's talk Diana. Harry's voice exploded before Howard even finished. Don't! The studio froze. Harry continued, voice shaking with anger, but not loud, just controlled, icy, dangerous. Do not sit here and drag my mother into this for ratings. Howard didn't back down. I wasn't dragging her. I was asking how you think she'd see the man you've become. Harry's nostrils flared. You don't get to ask me that. Howard folded his arms. And you don't get to dictate what I ask on my show. Harry leaned forward, face tense. You're crossing a line. Howard leaned in too, refusing to break eye contact. Lines get crossed when walls go up. Your walls are sky high, Harry. Harry scoffed. No, my boundaries are sky high. Howard corrected him quietly. There's a difference, Robin whispered. This is getting scary. Harry ran a hand through his hair, agitated. You know what? This is exactly what I expected. Another American host pretending they understand my life better than I do. Howard tilted his head. I don't pretend to understand your life. I'm trying to understand you, but you're making it damn near impossible. Harry's lips curled in a cold, dismissive smile. Maybe I'm not here to be understood. Howard tapped his pen. Then why are you here? Harry looked away, jaw clenched. I'm here because you begged my team for months. Howard blinked. Oh wow, he said slowly. We're rewriting history now? Harry smirked. I don't need this show. You need me. Howard sat back. Robin whispered, and there it is. For the first time, a real spark of anger flickered across Howard's face. He didn't show it fully, but it was there. Harry saw it. And he smiled. The air inside the Howard Stern studio had shifted. What started as tense had now crossed into volatile. Even Robin, who had seen decades of on-air meltdowns, was staring at the two men like she was watching a fuse burn into dynamite. Howard rested both hands on the desk, the gesture calm but unmistakably firm, the stance of a man who no longer felt like playing games. Prince Harry, on the other hand, looked like he had fully committed to the role of antagonist. His jaw was set, his eyes sharp, his posture rigid in a way that said, "Say one more thing I don't like. Just one." Howard broke the silence first. So, he began slowly, you're saying we begged for this interview. Harry lifted his chin smugly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Howard shrugged. All right, strange, because my producer is sitting right there shaking her head no so hard, I think she'll sprain something. Robin burst into a nervous laugh. It's true. We didn't chase him. Harry rolled his eyes, dismissing her entirely. You're all part of the same media machine, pretending things for optics. Howard's eyebrows rose. Buddy, you literally emailed us first. Harry stiffened. I don't respond to lies. Howard let out a breath, rubbing the bridge of his nose. This is exhausting, man. Harry sat back, crossing his arms with a triumphant smirk. That's what happens when people finally get challenged, Howard. Most of you aren't used to being confronted. Robin gave Howard a sideways glance. He didn't just say that, did he? Howard leaned forward, amusement and annoyance mixing dangerously. Oh no, Harry, we get confronted all the time. We're New Yorkers. It's our whole culture. What we're not used to is guests coming on a show just to pick a fight. Harry snorted. Maybe I'm just not intimidated by you. Howard smiled thinly. No one here is trying to intimidate you. Harry's voice sharpened. Then stop acting like you're above me. Howard blinked, genuinely confused. Above you? Dude, you're the one who keeps reminding me you're a prince. Harry's tone turned cold. I don't need to remind you. Everyone already knows. Howard paused. Robin whispered, Oh my God. Howard tapped his finger on the desk. So, let me get this straight. You want to leave royalty behind, but you want everyone to still treat you like royalty? Harry opened his mouth and froze for a second. Just a second. Then the irritation returned twice as strong. You're twisting my words. Howard didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His calm was more threatening than shouting could ever be. I'm repeating your words. Harry snapped. Well, you're doing it wrong. Robin's eyes widened. This man is unhinged. Howard folded his hands. All right, let's shift to something lighter. Harry scoffed. Right, because you've done such a great job so far. Howard ignored him. The Spotify situation, the deal ending early, podcasters calling you untalented, the whole talentless fuckers comment aimed at you and your wife. Harry cut in, icy sharp. And you're bringing it up because... Howard shrugged. Because the entire world talked about it. And you said before you take control of your narrative. So, here's your chance. Harry leaned forward, voice low and biting. My wife and I were treated unfairly. They expected us to be puppets. We don't produce content on command like circus animals. We speak when we have something important to say. Howard nodded slowly. Okay, but some would argue the public expected more because... Harry interrupted immediately. The public expects too much. They always do. They're entitled. Howard stared at him. Entitled? The public? Yes, Harry snapped. Yes, entitled. They think they deserve access to everything. Our thoughts, our lives, our past. They think we owe them explanations. I owe them nothing. Howard tapped his pen on his notes again. You did take millions from companies dependent on public engagement. Harry's nostrils flared. It was payment for our presence, not our obedience. Robin whispered, Wow, just... wow. Howard calmly continued. Let's talk William. Harry's entire body tensed. No. Howard blinked. That was fast. Harry leaned forward, eyes narrowing. I said no. Howard tilted his head. Harry, you wrote an entire chapter about him breaking a dog bowl over your head. Harry snapped. And I regret sharing that. People like you twist it, use it to paint him as perfect and me as the villain. Howard frowned. I literally read it from your own book. Harry slammed his palm on his knee. That doesn't mean you understand it. Context matters. Howard sighed deeply. Okay, let's talk Catherine then. Harry exploded. Absolutely not. Leave her out of this. Howard blinked slowly. You're making this very difficult. Harry sneered. That's not my problem. Howard inhaled sharply through his nose, the first real sign that patience was no longer part of the equation. Robin gently said, Howard. But Howard waved her off and leaned in. Harry, why did you even come here? The prince smirked, cold, arrogant, unapologetic. Because I can. Howard stared at him. Harry continued. Because you all need me. Because without guests like me, you're irrelevant. Silence. Robin covered her mouth. Howard Stern sat absolutely still. But his eyes had changed. They weren't amused anymore. They weren't patient. They weren't curious. They were done. And Harry, oblivious or uncaring, sat there with the proud, smug confidence of someone who had just lit a match and dropped it on a pile of gasoline. The studio had gone silent. Heavy, dense, electric silence. Howard Stern sat perfectly still, his hands folded, his eyes locked on Prince Harry with the cold focus of a man who had reached the limit of what he was willing to tolerate. Harry, meanwhile, lounged back in his chair with a smugness that seemed almost rehearsed. He mistook the silence for victory. Robin, sensing the eruption coming, muttered under her breath, Oh, this is bad. Howard cleared his throat. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was controlled, and that made it all the more dangerous. Harry, he began slowly, I've interviewed people who have survived war. I've interviewed people who've lost their entire families. I've interviewed addicts, leaders, victims, villains, geniuses, fools, and every shade in between. Harry smirked. So now you're adding Prince to your collection? Howard didn't blink. No, I'm adding arrogance. The smirk dropped. Howard leaned forward, his voice dangerously calm. You come in here swinging at everyone. Your family, your country, your critics, the media, people who've never met you, people who once admired you, and now you're swinging at us. Harry scoffed. You're acting like you're some noble guardian of truth, Howard. You're just another media figure profiting off my name. Howard nodded once, slowly. That may be true, but here's the difference. I don't pretend I'm better than the people I criticize. Robin murmured, Jesus! Howard continued, voice sharpening. You sit in that chair claiming you don't care about attention, but everything about you screams that you crave it, on your terms only. You say the public is entitled, but you expect the world to worship you because you walked away from a life most people would kill for. Harry leaned forward aggressively. You think my life was easy? You think wearing a title makes everything perfect? You think I didn't suffer? Howard's tone didn't rise. That made it worse. I think you've convinced yourself that suffering gives you the right to treat everyone else like dirt. Harry's jaw clenched. I don't have to sit here and take that. Howard shrugged. Then don't. Harry narrowed his eyes. You're doing exactly what the British press did, twisting everything to fit your narrative. Howard smirked. No, Harry. You're doing what toddlers do, throwing a tantrum when someone dares question them. Harry's face reddened instantly. How dare you? Howard cut him off, voice sharp as a blade. How dare you come into my studio, insult me, insult my co-host, insult my staff, and then pretend you're some enlightened truth-teller. You're not enlightened, Harry. You're angry. You're lost. And instead of dealing with that, you lash out at anyone who mirrors something you don't want to face. Harry stood up suddenly, the chair scraping loudly. Oh, here we go. Howard Stern, the psychologist, analyzing the big bad prince. Howard stood too, not aggressively, but with the firm authority of someone reclaiming his space. Let me tell you the truth, Harry, and listen carefully. A beat of silence. You are not in your palace. You are not protected by your royal title. You are not above anyone in this room. Harry straightened his jacket, shaking with fury. You think I care about any of that? Howard jabbed a finger toward the door. I think you care more about it than anyone else ever has. The studio froze. Then Howard delivered the final blow, each word crystal sharp. And let me make something perfectly clear. This is America. You're not a prince here, and you are not welcome on my show. Oh, any more! Gasps erupted across the studio. Robin's jaw dropped. Harry stared, stunned, a rare moment where the arrogance cracked, revealing something raw underneath. Rage, confusion, humiliation, it all flickered behind his eyes. He finally grabbed his water bottle, knocked over his mic in the process, and hissed, "You're pathetic." Howard didn't blink. "And you're done. Get out." Harry stormed toward the exit, ripping off his mic pack so violently that the cord snapped. A producer tried to stop the equipment from falling, but Harry shoved past without a glance. The studio doors slammed shut behind him. Silence. Then Howard sank back into his chair with an exhausted sigh. Robin whispered, "That was a disaster." Howard leaned toward the microphone, voice steady, cool, professional. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize. We brought Prince Harry on to have a real conversation, but, well, you saw what happened." He exhaled. You can't have a conversation with someone who refuses to hear anything but his own voice. The red studio light dimmed. The show went to commercial. And across the world, audiences sat stunned at the sight of a prince who walked in with arrogance and walked out exposed. If this wild showdown shocked you as much as it shocked us, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we have more unbelievable celebrity clashes coming your way. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.